you want to pull up on the bar, pull the slack out of the bar as much as possible. You don't want any slack. Okay, I've harped on that enough. Okay. Next thing is doing your training. You want to don't overtrain your biceps. And what I mean by that is if you're doing this primarily for powerlifting, be careful with the amount of lat work that you do. Overdoing your lats and overworking your biceps. You can do lat work to a moderate amount. Myself, I was never big on doing a lot of lat work. It worked for me to do heavy back, heavy shrugs, and some bent over barbell rows, some seated rows every now and then. But for the most part, I would train those exercises probably a couple times a month, and I wouldn't go deep into them as much. They weren't as important to my success for all three of my the three big lifts. They wasn't as important with the squat, bench, and the deadlift. Not to me, it wasn't. I didn't need it. And I proved that I could do it without doing a lot of that. Now, of course, you want to work your back. Everybody likes having a big back. But to me, when I worked my traps, and I did a lot of heavy shrugs, a lot of heavy rack pulls, and a lot of heavy pulling itself, and even heavy squatting, the way I squatted, engaged my lats in a different way. So when you're doing your lat movements, and you're doing them to the point to where, you're doing 8, 10, 12. Once you get over 8 sets, 8, 10, 12, 14, 15, 16, 20 sets of lats, and you're a power lifter, you're starting to stress your bicep. And if you got heavy deadlifts that week coming up, or the next week you plan on doing heavy deadlifts, your biceps is going to be a little bit stressed from it. So you don't want that. You want to keep your biceps from being as stressed as possible. So if you go do this, make sure you get some kind of massage therapy work or do something to try to prevent this from happening. Because if you don't, then you probably going to be at risk for, tearing a bicep and that tendon rolling up. So don't overwork your upper back. I'm not saying don't work your upper back. I'm not saying that. Just don't overtrain it. Don't do lat work a couple of days before, 2 to 3 days before you get a deadlift, or the day before you get a deadlift. You know what? The best time to do your lat work is right after you do your deadlifts, or the very next day. Don't wait any further than that. If you got heavy pulls, you do your lat work after that. So you get your biceps stuff in then. So the recovery time, so that you have a full, as much time to recover as you possibly can. A full week would be great. So if you did it on the same day, if you had a chance to do 6 to 8 sets, that would be great. That's all you need. Another thing I'll say about that is doing a lot of heavy biceps after that. I mean, if you're a powerlifter, if you're doing lat work, if you did the lat work, you don't need to do a whole lot of heavy bicep work. I mean, do your biceps light to moderate. And once again, do them as close to your deadlift day as possible, after your deadlift day, or on the deadlift day, so that you have time to recover for the next week. Don't wait and do it a day before you get ready to do your deadlifts. Use common sense when planning your workouts, when programming. That's why most of the time, a lot of young lifters and girls don't know how to program, how to, when is the best time to do these exercises, to do things. Well, that's part of programming. And these things you got to know. Use common sense it's common sense to me, but it may not be to a lifter who's young and new at it. You know what I'm saying? That's why it's good to reach out and get help, get a coach or somebody to help you. So always keep that in mind. Okay? Next also is get some kind of massage therapy work every now and then, and some chiropractic work on your body. Take care of yourself. Don't just let yourself just get run down and, beat up and think you're going to recover on your own all the time. Now we got so many different ways of mobility work, so many different ways of of doing things. I mean, it's no reason not to be recovered, to take care of yourself. Like I said before, recovery is the most important part of this thing, whether you're old or young.